you have to be honest with yourself and what drives you and what's going to make you find your thing. And obviously, listen, I've played real life people and I've played fictitious characters, and what is the thing matters a great deal on all of this. But sort of a mashup experience for me is what best serves me to get into it, I think, from the get-go.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Greg Kinnear is an actor. I sat down with him at the Four Seasons Hotel in New York City to talk about the work.
Do you have a certain way you begin your preparation process for a role? Are there certain steps you take when you get a script?
No. I'm so loath to do this because I can just imagine after 70 of these, you must have so many great answers to like very organized, smart actors with a deep method and specifics about how they prepare for each and everything. And I have to be honest. I will be honest with you and tell you that, for me, I feel like I don't know how many movies or things I've done, but I feel like each one has had its own kind of narrative and its own method. Sometimes there's a deeper dive, and sometimes I'm reticent to kind of get too close to the material. I've had that as well, where I go into something and I don't want to know too much about it. I want the discovery to happen when I'm there on the day. So I just don't have a great one-size-fits-all answer to that, other than to say the script is the thing. Duh, we all know that, and you must know that. You must, if I've said yes, there's something that I feel about that. There's some sort of connection usually to the script. There's been a couple of times where it's just been, wow, I'm going to work with Mike Nichols. Okay, fine. But generally, I think that there is something, piece of something in the character, in the script, in the story that I've connected with, and then it's go in and kind of process it and proceed accordingly. And that what constitutes accordingly for me is, it's a different card every time, I feel like. I actually wish I wish that I had a more specific thing, a more specific process, but I don't, I started in Talk Soup, for God's sakes, and I liked the chaos. I would show up to that show, and I guess I thrive a little bit on a loose deck, and then trying to find my way through it and make organization out of it. But if it's too neat for me, I find it problematic.
And do you know how many people listening are saying right now, finally, that's like me? Somebody said that.
Damn it.
Finally.
I didn't mean to give away the house secrets like that, and admit that it's that sort of a loss of process, but it's a truthful one, and I don't feel like it's in a way, that's as specific as any other process,
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that is the key, is to, you have to be honest with yourself and what drives you and what's going to make you find your thing. And obviously, listen, I've played real life people and I've played fictitious characters, and what is the thing matters a great deal on all of this. But sort of a mashup experience for me is what best serves me to get into it, I think, from the get-go.
And I think one thing we've learned from this show is that keeping things tied down too much is never the right choice, no matter how prepared people are.
Yeah.
You have to be loose on the day.
Right.
It just seems like that's the way to go.
Yeah, I think that knowing the material, I mean, can't be stated enough. I mean, you really do need to know the material. The more you know it, the more, I think, kind of effortless it becomes to find whatever it is you're trying to find. If you know, and listen, I'm not the first person to say that. If you can throw away the script and you can let go of all the detail of memorization, which, by the way, is just, you know, I have actor friends who work, you know, they really struggle with the memorization of lines, and then I have others that are just like, man, they read the newspaper and recount that story to you almost verbatim.
Yeah.
It is uncanny.
Yeah.
And you know, I probably live somewhere in the middle, although that aspect of it, you know, the memorization was always, you know, fairly easy, but it's the more it solidifies and the more that you have it, the more you can let it go.
I'm just fascinated that before you guys shot Little Miss Sunshine, you had this rehearsal period.
Yeah.
And anybody who doesn't think that that paid dividends
Yeah.
to why we love this thing and why is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
here they are, these two people, Valerie Ferris and Jonathan Dayton. They never made a feature before. They're about to shoot with people that have made a lot of movies. Why didn't you guys say, hey guys, this is not the way it's done
Right.
in a movie? I mean, like, we're not going to spend time. Or did you say, finally, I get to have rehearsal?
That's a great question. And I would say it was finally we get to have rehearsal. But I say that, you know, I say that with some degree of caution, because I think they could have set the table completely wrong for that rehearsal. You know, we got down there and, you know, it's been talked about, you know, we played, they had us doing all sorts of crazy things that we've all kind of referenced for a long week of rehearsal. We were buzzing around in the little yellow bus to go bowling, and we were writing character assignments where I would write what Paul Dano was thinking and Paul's writing what Alan Arkin's character is thinking. And, you know, they had, you know, certainly we had just straight up rehearsal too, but there were a lot of, it was a little campy, the whole thing. But I have to say that they, two things. One, John and Val just are incredible people, very, very positive people whose, I think, sort of infectious enthusiasm for what we were about to do was, you know, we all caught the virus immediately and everybody was all in. But they could have, you know, look, they could have had us doing the wrong things. They could have been setting up some weird, awkward deal where I'm sure I would have been seeing looks from Alan Arkin or Tony, like, what the hell is going on? It just wasn't the case. It seemed very organic. It felt very natural, and in a very short period of time, you felt like this is really serving a purpose. I am learning about every other character on this. That we are creating a family right here, and I think it was their preparation for that, and they're just being the right people to kind of know how to set the table for us all, and maybe some element of luck, you know, and just everybody kind of fit in really nicely. But yeah, that should happen more. I mean, it is. I've been doing it, you know, this for a few years, and it certainly seems like as time goes on, rehearsal is something that is has been compromised in the process. And I guess it's, you know, people's schedules and busy, and we all have handlers. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I think actors want it. I think actors welcome it, but it's something that's a little more elusive as time goes on, and that's a shame.
Has there been anyone that has played more real life people than you?
I don't know. I do not know.
Does this just get annoying? Joe Biden, John Kennedy, Dick Vermeil, Bob Crane, Greg Kinnear you even played.
Yes, I did play Greg Kinnear. Yes.
And now this new movie, which I found very moving, painful in a good way, meaning painful in a way that I needed to feel pain.
Yeah.
Brian Banks, you play Justin Brooks, a real life hero. I expected my Exonerate T-shirt. Where's my Exonerate
I'm
T-shirt?
sorry, I should have brought you
don't
one,
you have
man.
a pile
I
of them?
know, I don't. You know, I forgot I was going to bring some to New York, and he's going to be mad at me because I should have them for. He would pass them out to the world. He's a great marketer for his cause, and he's never taken a dime from the California Innocence Project, which he started, and is a really good guy. So listen, I'm just happy to help get the message out, certainly about what it is the CIP does. But moreover, you know, I love the movie. I think it's a really, I think it's a great film, great story, and leaves an audience with a sense of purpose and kind of a little sense, without preaching to them, it leaves them with a sense of giving them ideas of what they can do to help deal with a criminal justice system that needs re-examination.
When you're playing Joe Biden, he's not around. Obviously, John Kennedy's not around. Justin Brooks, it was on the set.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Do you have this, I don't know what the right word is, this urge to try and get him right in a kind of superficial way, in a kind of mannerism way? Like, are you studying him? And then when he's on the set and he's watching, is that even more pressure for you?
Well, he was there while we shot it, and certainly when you play, you know, a real life guy, and we were soldiers. You know, I played Bruce Crandall, who's a war hero who's also there, and he was a badass, so he scared me. So I really did feel like I better get that guy right. And certainly with Justin, you know, he's a great guy, and he's obviously not a you know, a national figure, although he has been tied into some national stories. But you know, the audience isn't looking. They don't look at this and have an expectation the way they do with somebody we all know. So, but yeah, you still feel a sense of wanting to be accurate for yourself. You know, hanging out with him in his law classes and following him around as he, you know, at the CIP, and getting a chance to really meet the guy and become friends with him, which I count him as a friend, was wonderful, because it's hard to know what piece you take from him. I don't really know. I mean, I felt him when I was doing the movie, but I think in the case of Brian Banks, the biggest issue for me that I struggled with was Justin runs this organization that has exonerated many, many people, dozens, who are in jail, locked up 10, 20, 30 years, and they get them out. They overturn the conviction. And Brian was an unusual story. I mean, Brian was out of prison. He served his time. He was wearing an ankle bracelet. He couldn't, as a registered sex offender for a crime he didn't commit, he wasn't able to go near a field and pursue football, which is his dream. All he wanted was to pursue, you know, a career in the NFL, and he was stopped from doing that because of these things. And Justin felt for him. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, when you watch the movie, I mean, Aldous Hodge plays him, lights out, unbelievable performance, and you really feel for this guy, and you feel Justin's dilemma of wanting, of course, to help him. You want to help everybody. But I see this with him. He can't, you know, and he wears he's a very positive guy. He's got a great attitude. And I don't know how one arms themselves for dealing with the California criminal justice system, where you are getting no after no after no. But I guess you kind of do it that way. You just put on the best positive face you can and deal with it. And you feel in the first half of the movie Justin's plight of wanting to help the kid, but he can't. And then you see that moment where he makes that decision, which is how it happened in real life, to dial in deep and to make a shot of trying to overturn this conviction. And that switch, more than anything for me, was the hook for Justin. I love that turn in him, and finding that, and to the point where honestly, when I saw the movie, I was like, damn, I was a little, I'm a little, I felt like he's awfully tough with this. He's a little dismissive.
Yeah.
I think it's accurate.
Yeah.
Justin's, felt like it was it's on spot on and all that. That's great to hear. But for me, I was like, wow, that's awfully harsh. I do think that was the plight though that he was faced with, and I do think that turn was a great thing as an actor to play. And we all want to play characters where there's a change, there's a turn, there's some sort of switch, something's being learned, something is being gained, and that that slight transformation is what you hope for in any role, whether it's a true life story or not.
You directed a movie called Phil that I think deserves to be seen more. It's on demand now, people can see it.
iTunes, I believe.
iTunes, yes. And I need to see it again because it took me a second and I love this aspect of it. Like, I didn't know what it was until midway through it. Maybe more than midway. I'm like, this is a mystery.
Yeah.
There is a tone that needs to be set because this is a little bit dark. Mm-hmm. If you don't hit that tone right, you have problems. I mean, like, this could have been a really, really giant mess.
Yeah.
There are moments in this where you have to reach an emotional place where this character is in a certain low place. Suicidal, yeah. And if you leaned more into the depression, or if you gave me less of it, it would not have worked.
Yeah.
Did you think of that going in? And you didn't have a director helping you with that.
Yeah.
You are the director.
I feel, at the end of the day, tone's a weird thing. I really like the film. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You get it or you don't. I felt like I had suicide kind of indirectly touch me in my life, and Stephen Mazur's script. Here was a guy that is basically, witness. A guy who thinks he has nothing to live for meets a guy who has everything to live for, sees that guy take his life, and it becomes a mystery as to why that could happen, and what does that say about him, and how can he how's he to go on, and I think in this world of social media where we're all looking at these, everybody's got these happy lives that we're all scrolling through. That aspect of it really touched on me, is you don't know what's going on in somebody else's life. And you, here was Phil thinking and projecting his own ideas on another person, and having to learn for himself what his own life's all about. And so there were a lot of rich, interesting things in there. As far as tone, I do think that the script has a lot to do with that. I worked with Stephen for a long time on that before we shot it, and I felt like once we got there, it was just a bit of a balancing act, because there's some. You're right. It is a mystery. There's parts of it that I find very funny. There's parts of it that kind of obviously, because it touches on that issue. You can't do it for comedy.
Yes.
You have to be very careful how you manage that. Which I had great sympathy and sensitivity about the issue, but I couldn't do a heavy drama as a director about that subject matter. I just couldn't do it. It's not in me. But here was a way that touched on something I thought about, I cared about, some themes that I was interested in, and I felt like it allowed me a way in. So, John Bailey, who actually shot me in As Good as It Gets, was my DP, and I'd go up to John after take, and we talk a little bit. So I had him there, and certainly my producer, Sandy Stern, and I had wonderful actors. I had a really great group. Emily Mortimer, yes, Luke Wilson, Robert Forster, Bradley Whitford. Oh my gosh, I have so many. Jay Duplass. Oh my gosh, Jay is awesome. I was lucky. I mean, I really had a wonderful group of actors who said yes. Who said, yeah, we'll give it a shot. Yeah. And so they, more than anything, are what helped me get through it and kind of find the tone, or whatever tone works or doesn't work.
I love it. I really think that it's hard to please me. It really is. And that's why, sometimes I don't know what people really like.
No, I don't either. I don't know, and this is the business that we're all in, is like I don't know. No one knows what an audience likes. I mean, I guess I know after, one of those movies, Marvel movies opens and it's $500 million over the weekend. I'm like, I guess people like that. But I don't know what... I don't know where the thing is that drives people to movies. So I think with the great directors who I've been lucky enough to work with, I've always felt like they were just telling the story as best they could, as honestly as they could, and the audience either gets in line or they don't.
Right. Speaking of the great directors you've worked with, Sidney Pollack, James L. Brooks, Mike Nichols, as a way of beginning to talk about them, I want to know what you needed and how the great ones found out what is going on inside you.
Well, I think the great ones are great because they're seamless. You don't see the machinations. Like, in other words, if they're working you and they're pulling something out of you, I don't think you know. Because if you know, then it is a very self-conscious conversation and thing happening, and very, borderline mechanical. I think, many of the greats are just have this ability to talk about an idea or something that would kind of steer you in the right direction. James Brooks, so great at just, when I made that film, of just his humor and just through stories kind of, I don't know, I always felt like I was steered in the right direction by him, but I don't know how. I couldn't tell you exactly how. And he always, he experiments on the day. I mean, he's trying to find it. It's like this wonderful sound in his head. It's a note on a piano or a guitar, and it's like he knows exactly what it is, but we're going to find it here, and he's not sure until he hears it what it is, and it's a great discovery to make, and I guess it's I guess that's a case by case basis, but. All I know is, all the great directors I've worked with. And by the way, I've worked with some great directors who aren't big, quote unquote, name directors. Yes. I mean, I've made discoveries along the way, or like, this person really knows what they are doing. Yes. And trying to, find, the truth in any scene, and trying to help guide me to some sense of a performance that makes sense.
I have a feeling, but you can tell me if I'm wrong, that one of those people of the new generation of great filmmakers is Ira Sachs.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a friend in common who I reached out to, Kaveh Zahedi, and asked him to write to Ira to ask him for a quote about you.
Yeah.
And this is what he said. Greg is a disarmingly great actor. He's able to make the dark light, the ugly pretty, the hard vulnerable. He's also an absolute natural. You don't know how he gets from one place to the next, but he does so fluidly and without any seeming effort. He could make reading a phone book sound authentic. He has dramatic instincts that I think he isn't even aware of. So he knows how to modulate his performance and how to use a natural sense of humor to get deep and moving moments. He never overplays, but he never underplays either. He rides a very interesting, complicated line between sympathetic and less so, just like all of us. But he's less afraid to show it. He's fearless, human, delicate, and wonderful.
Wow.
And let me tell you, Greg, that response came 13 minutes after that guy, Kaveh, sent it to Ira.
Yeah.
So it's not like although I wouldn't expect Ira to just like sit down and work on this for a day.
Sure.
But a lot of this is about how, using the word natural and like instinct. So when you're hearing a director that you've worked with that seems to have a shine for you, talk about this. And I never know how to talk about if somebody's a natural, especially to somebody that somebody thinks is a natural.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've talked to other actors about other people and I've said, are they a natural? And we can talk about it. But it's hard to talk about that idea.
Well, what does that mean? I mean, what do you think that means? What does it mean when somebody's these are all, you're talking to professional actors who have had great careers and do big time things. What does that mean?
I think everyone's trying to get there, and I'm putting up air quotes.
Yeah.
And some people think that other people get there without the work, quote unquote work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, whatever naturalness I have, it sure doesn't feel that way when I start with when I'm sent a script and I read it the first time, and I'm like, I usually start with, there's no possible way I'm going to end up in this thing. They're not going to hire me. I can't play this role anyway. I don't understand how this would work. I mean, it always kind of starts from there. So, and that's, I promise you, that's not me trying to shuck the natural air quote label. It's just the truth. And so it takes me there. So then I guess I get back to that process thing for me. And I guess, as I was saying, there's a lot of different ways for it to happen. But I do feel like there's stuff I go through to get there. And I can't write out what those specifics for you are, but it never feels, it never feels natural from the get-go. When it's really going well, and Ira's a great example. I mean, Ira, by the way, is been such a blessing, to get to work with, because we did, Frankie over in Portugal, which is a beautiful film, and Little Men, which honestly will be, one of my favorite movies I ever did. Mm-hmm. And he is, by the way, a protege of Sidney Pollack. Mm-hmm. And he just has, he sets the room in such a way where I feel like, as I come on, that whatever that thing is, for me, it just feels as fluid as it possibly can. Mm-hmm. There are no obstructions to just finding the most truthful, honest version of what is happening in that moment. And of course that's, in the text, but it's also in his incredible, I don't know, his personality, the way that his kind of demeanor sets a very, a great tone on set. I know what he's looking for. He's looking for truth, and we all are, of course. But listen, some people are really gifted at creating an environment where that can come through. And I think he really stands out as somebody who can do that.
When I found this quote from you, I think it was like, all right, this might be what this guy's about in a certain way, and what he's doing. And I want to just know if this still pertains, and if you even remember saying this,
or whether I did say it. Let's not rule that out.
Setting goals can blind you to opportunities. You might be trying to get to point C. When opportunity B comes, you don't even look at it because you're going straight to C. I've never had a clear roadmap. When things come along, I benefit.
Yeah, I mean, oh God, that's really. I would like to have said that in a more elegant way, but
I'm sure you did.
I'm sure that there is some that sounds like me, and it is true. I mean, I don't. That hasn't changed, and it certainly was true when I started out. I mean, listen, I did talk shows and came from an entirely different world. Today, you know, somebody does a talk show and now they're doing, what is that, a movie star? I see doing a commercial on television, and then is that a TV star doing this movie, and is that movie star doing this cable television show? I mean,
what about these movie stars doing game show?
Absolutely,
hosts?
absolutely. So the mix has changed. The world has changed, you know, so much. But certainly when I started, it was very designated. You are a film actor. You are a TV actor. You are a TV host. And I think I was trying to explain that, you know, because I really, you know, I ended up in a very kind of circuitous way getting to, you know, work in the world that I did. And I was trying to explain it myself. I think to myself. And I do think that there's truth. There was, you know, truth in that, in the sense that, you know, one of the talk shows that I did used to be hosted by Bob Costas. It was called Later. It was on at 1:30 in the morning. Before him, you had, what was his name? I used to smoke.
Oh my God, Tom.
Oh, come on. Snyder. There you go. My God, Tom Snyder. We used to say at this hour, you get your smokers and your tokers. And no, Costas took over the show, and then I took over from Costas. And Costas is a great example. He's 5 years old. He's got a Mickey Mantle baseball card that he carried around with him. And he still, because I asked him, he still has the card in his wallet. I believe it's Mickey Mantle. At any rate, this is a guy who wanted to do sports.
Yeah.
And I think Bob was determined to do sports. Super smart guy. Could have gone a lot of different areas, but you know, he went the place that he marked on the map, and I don't think he ever, you know, looked elsewhere, and you know, and had a hell of a career because of it. And I guess for me, the map was more vague. I could never imagine that I would end up in the entertainment business, you know, even though I had interest as a kid and did a radio show and some acting. I mean, I didn't know anybody in this business. After I finished school, I was like, I got to go somewhere and sell something or do something. I came to Los Angeles and I worked for this low budget film company, and it wasn't exactly, but it kind of led to meeting some people, which led to strangely an audition for something, which led to another thing, which, you know, my point being that, you know, no clarity, you know, to a fault on much of my early stuff. And it was staying open. It was staying neutral. I mean, I could have said, I was doing a NBC nightly show, and you know, was making, you know, a lot of money and doing that kind of career when Sidney Pollack, you know, kind of looked me up for Sabrina, and I was not only was I not thinking, that's not what I do. I was the opposite. I was like, wow, let's go talk about that. What would that be? And we sat down in his office, and you know, he auditioned me, and I kind of found my way, you know, into that world, and so I guess to some degree, it's still true. I still stay as open as I can, and try to mix it up as best I can, because I don't think that I have any set designation, and I certainly don't have it on the characters that I play now, where, you know, whenever I get asked that, you know, irritating question, you know, do you want to play, what kind of movie do you want to play, what do you want to do, you know, what role do you want to play? And I don't know. I know it when I see it. When somebody has taken the time to kind of script something, you know, incredible, and help create this new character that's now sitting on a page, I never saw that coming until I read that script. So I do still try to stay open, and I guess that's a long way of answering the question as to why I have that slightly cheesy quote in my IMDb page.
But sticking with this cheesy quote analogy or whatever you were using there, I am very excited to see what point D is for you.
Oh. Well, okay. Okay, I just did CBS this morning, and an hour ago, and I was sitting there thinking, yeah, so you guys do this, huh? Every morning you come around the round table and talk about it? So I'm not saying I'm going there, but it was kind of interesting.
But that's a 3 a.m. wake up.
That's why that's not on the list. By the way, I can tell you that is not on the map. That is firmly scratched out of the Greg Kinnear roadmap for sure. 3 a.m. Goodness gracious.
Greg Kinnear.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is great. Appreciate it.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.